Hello and welcome back. Today we have Harper's Bazaar, April 2023. On the cover is Brie Larson, and you'll see, I don't know what kind of Samira Nasser was thinking, but she's the editor-in-chief of this magazine, and she also styled some of these shoots you'll see in here. She actually kind of got into the trenches and was styling shoots, which is not common for an editor-in-chief to go down to ground level and start styling individual shoots. But she did here, and you're going to see these cowboy boots, and they do not work with these different outfits. So I'm kind of shocked that somebody of Samira Nasser's capabilities just became fixated on these cowboy boots, and worse, I'm repeating myself, they do not work at all. So we'll see more as we go along. This is wonderful here. Look how custom tailored these jeans are, how wonderfully tailored they are, and you have to know they've got something kind of attached, like these little like suspenders, those little alligator clips. There's got to be something pulling that shirt down to prevent it from, like a muffin top, where the shirt, sometimes the material comes out of the pants and gathers. And look, there's none of that here. So I'm thinking they have it cinched down, right, attached to something to keep it that flat. And this is cool. You can see by the stitching here, we're getting a return to the early 80s designer jeans. Like, if you remember back in, well, I don't know if you're old enough, but anyways, it was Jordache and Calvin Klein and Gloria Vanderbilt. Those were the big three designer jeans, and they were all the rage for maybe 7 years, from maybe 81 to 88 or 89, and then they started going out of style in about 88, 89, just approximately. But my point here is the way these are designed here, we're kind of bringing back the designer jeans of the 1980s. But what's different, instead of a side pocket, this is a dungaree style, the navy dungaree with the flat front pockets. But dungarees are flared at the bottom where the cuff is, it's a flared, they call it a flare or a bell bottom. But I can't see, of course, but you have to wonder if the cuff of the jean is flared out, and if so, then it really is a dungaree. Okay, this is the third different image I've seen from Hermes involving horses and what appears to be horse leather clothing. So again, I just, is this some kind of inside baseball? Is it a tease? Like, right? It's almost like a joke that this clothing is made of horse leather, and they're, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's almost like twisted. It's kind of a maligned message they're sending, because it certainly looks like horse leather. And right, if that's what they're doing, that is really twisted and maligned. But anyways, I wanted to let you know that they did specify a medium grade cardstock here. So if you were so inclined, you could take an X-Acto. This is heavy. I'm going to pop it and see if you can hear it. See, that's a medium grade cardstock. So this you could cut this out and turn it into an ad hoc poster if you wanted to. So again, this is the second month in a row. Do you remember the last one was Charlize Theron, and the only difference was her head? Now we're going here, it's a little different. I'm a subscriber, so this is the subscriber cover, and this might have been the newsstand cover, right? It's just, before it would have been much different. And again, it's heavy cardstock, so I do appreciate that. This is a little bit heavier than the last Hermes, so I would say this is heavy, whereas the Hermes was medium. So again, if you wanted to collect every one of these month by month and turn them into posters and frame them and hang them on a wall, you could certainly do that. This is Rosé from the group Blackpink. Nice shot, but it's not really Hall of Fame. I like it. Now this is heavy cardstock. It's heavy, not medium. So you could, if you're a fan of Blackpink, you could cut that out. frame it and hang it on a wall. It's a little overexposed, maybe a third to a half stop overexposed, but it's just not a world-class photo. I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't scream Hall of Fame or museum, right? It's just something is absent, that X factor that separates a museum photo from an average photo, right? It's that X factor is just not present in this image. Okay, here's Rosé again. And the theme here obviously would be K-pop, right? If you're not familiar with K-pop, it's pop music now is really, a lot of it is coming out of South Korea, right? It's really making a big impact in popular music. And I don't know who this gentleman is, I really don't. I would assume maybe he's from BTS or another boy band, a K-pop boy band. But it's okay. And I did want to tell you something too, and this is really interesting. I kind of study fashions a little bit, right? Not as a full-time job by any means. But, for years, the fashions that really set the pace were out of New York, London, and basically Milan, right? And Rome. Rome, Milan, London, Paris and New York. But for the last 10 years, a lot of the really cutting-edge fashion has been coming out of South Korea. So not only are they making an impact in music, they're really starting to make an impact in fashion. Now, I don't know if this is a South Korean design, but a lot of the stuff in the stores you see today that are really, really quite nice, they're coming out of South Korea. Okay, this is nice here. It's it's nothing. I think is this cardstock? Yep. See. Okay, this is another one. So I don't know, right? So what? Do you remember the other one we saw? Let me see. So this one. So I don't know which one was the newsstand cover, right? I don't know if it was this, the newsstand, or this is the newsstand. But anyways, they're starting to put two insets in here, two like faux covers, FAUX, right? Faux covers. So I don't know which one was available at the newsstand, but again, it's heavy cardstock. You can score it, but again, it's a very unflattering image. It's actually, I think it's pretty terrible, honestly. Okay, Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren has been making some departures recently for years, and I mean years. Ralph Lauren had two looks. It was equestrian, right? So he had equestrian-inspired attire, and the other was nautical, right? So a lot of his photo campaigns were shot on these big, luxurious yachts, or like at a marina, like it would be a model standing on the pier or a dock of a marina, and all the clothing was nautical inspired. Again, nautical or equestrian. Here, this is a complete departure. So, right, and that really is significant for Ralph Lauren, because he's deviating from his norm that he was doing for years. Okay, so this is kind of cool. It's a little bit too colorful for me, actually, but it's spring and summer, right? So April is part of the spring, and March through August is considered spring and summer in the fashion magazines, and September through February would be fall and winter. But here, these are the colors. This blue, yellow, green, and white are the colors of the Brazilian flag. So it seems to me here there's something going on with Brazil. Now, the model could kind of pass as Brazilian. Maybe she is Brazilian. I don't recognize her. But maybe there's some kind of Brazilian theme going on here that I just don't recognize. And this is cool. This is belt. This is from aviation and from parachuting. This is a real high grade aviation type metal and buckle. You would find this again in skydiving or aviation. So I thought that was kind of cool, but it's not matching. These are like gym shorts. So if it's a belt, if this is supposed to be a belt, why would a belt be on gym shorts? And it could also be, sometimes if you see a backpack, you can have a waist belt here, so like if you jog or run, it's not flapping on your back. You cinch it down here, the bottom of the backpack, you cinch it down. but I'm not seeing the straps of the backpack. So it's not this right waist cinching belt for a backpack. So I don't understand its purpose with gym shorts. I'm lost on that. So I just don't get it. I don't get this. It's kind of like it's all jumbled up and incoherent. This whole look is incoherent. Okay, this is stupid. I've said for years that, these fashion magazines, they have an agenda, right? It's the complete emasculation of men, and it has been for years. And this is no different. Look at this. They've taken this man and made him into a complete buffoon, completely emasculated him, which is par for the course. This is okay. It's colorful, but maybe perhaps a little too colorful. But when I saw this material, these three materials, these are the signature materials of Solveig Sundsbo. He's a photographer, and he loves to do these reflective materials, right? Because when the strobe hits these materials, it throws a lot of light back into the lens of the camera, and it really makes for some good photographs. And he usually has them really voluminous, right? So he'll have a fan out of frame, and he'll fill this material with air, and it just billows. And especially as it catches the light and throws it back into the lens, that's one of his signatures. But that's Solveig Sundsbo. But here, it's the same material that he likes, but it's not billowing. So, right, I'm kind of, right, I don't know if that's really Sundsbo or not. Here's Naomi Campbell. She's 52. I did a real quick Google search to see how old she is. She's 52. She looks wonderful. Really, really nice. Now, the only thing is, this image I think is perfectly exposed, and this one is a little hot. Now, here's just for your own knowledge, right? If you shoot an image and it turns out a little hot, there's two ways you can correct it. You can take the exposure slider and pull it just a little left. Now, this image to me looks like it's about a third of a stop overexposed. So you just bump it a little bit to the left, is underexposing, right? If you pull to the right, you're adding exposure. Pulling to the left is you're taking the exposure down. So here it's about a third of a stop. Or what you can do is leave exposure alone, and there's a highlight slider. So if you can see here, there are highlights on her forehead and on her cheeks, and there's a little bit of excess exposure in the clothing. So what you could do is you leave exposure as it is, and you take your highlight slider and pull your highlight slider left. You bring down the highlights, and it would kind of even, right? You would take these down, normalize these, normalize the sheen in her fabric. So there are two ways to go about correcting this image, right? But again, this one, it looks perfectly fine. This was interesting here. I studied this photo quite a bit, and if you can tell here, there's no strobe hitting this model. The photographer shot this model completely in ambient light, and it's really a flat, dead image, right? There's nothing popping about this image, and I give the photographer credit for keeping it real and keeping it minimalist by not using strobe. Right, and you can tell here they're in shadow, so this water is about one stop more overexposed than the model. So the photographer had a choice. Am I going to expose for the model and blow this out, or am I going to expose for the water and take her really dark? And of course, it's a no-brainer. You're shooting a model, you're going to expose for the model, and come what may, for the background. So the photographer did the right thing, exposing for the model and subsequently kind of blowing out the water. But my point is, by not using a strobe, look at how flat the image is, right? Her skin, especially here around the abdomen, right? Even in the fabric, this is completely dead. It's a dead photo from shooting in ambient. That's why you should really, to me, I know I'm kind of being judgmental here. This photographer is an artist, and he or she was totally free to create their art. But to me, always pop a model with a strobe, because a strobe will bring this model right to life, and she just pops, comes alive, right? So again, it's a flat dead image. Now this model, I'm gonna burn her. I'm really going to burn this person because she deserves it. Okay, let me give you the background on this because I had to research this. Because number one, you could tell she's really not making the grade as a model. So her name is Rachel Regini, and she is the daughter of Dior's creative director. Maria Grazia Giori is her name, okay? The creative director. So the creative director, she created a title for her own daughter. So this woman you see in the photo, she's the daughter of Dior's creative director, and they gave her the title of cultural consultant for Dior, right? That's her title in the organization. Not only did they give her the title of cultural consultant, they put her in the shoot as a model. So my point is, do you see how thin this magazine is getting? These magazines are getting thin because of this. Because we can no longer believe that these magazines are even real. This is all nepotism, right? She's not making the grade, and that's why you see people abandoning the subscriptions. They're not subscribing, and they're not buying at the newsstand because of this. This is the cause. It's double nepotism. She's the cultural consultant. If that's not bad enough, then they give her a gig as a model, and now she's double dipping, right? My goodness. So again, right? You know, there's an old saying, when you find yourself in a hole, the first rule is stop digging. Well, they're still not getting the memo at these fashion magazines. Okay, this is Patek Philippe, which is a real high-end wristwatch, beautifully photographed. Okay, and here's the large aperture. So they've used the large aperture, and they've set the focus here, right? Obviously, it's a wristwatch company, Patek Philippe, but her face is in focus. But if you see the foreground is out of focus. She is in focus, and the background is again out of focus. So it's a large aperture, right? Because a large aperture is what controls this narrow depth of field, right? And they've acquired focus. The photographer has acquired focus on the model and blown out the back. Not blown out, but blurred the back and blurred the front with the middle portion in focus. Okay, and this is another thing that really burns me. I don't know, it's just, okay, I get it, right? See, there's this movement now, this last few years, that beauty is everybody is beautiful. And I'm sorry, they're not. Not everybody is beautiful. At my age, I'm ugly, I'm fat, right? So, hey, you know what? I accept it. I'm ugly and I'm fat. I don't want to be in these magazines because I don't deserve to be in these magazines. So let's take this woman, okay? She's clearly an older woman. I get it. But at least put her in some makeup, right? Make her up and do something with her hair, right? Make her hair really just beautiful. This woman could have been very glamorous and beautiful in this photograph. What they've done is it looks like even almost like nightwear. It looks like she has literally just awakened first thing in the morning, ran her fingers through her hair, right? And taken this photo. It looks like she's been out of bed 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. She could have looked like $1 million if you would have put her in the chair and made her up and done her hair. So why not make her look like $1 million as an older woman instead of making her look like she's the janitor of the company, right? You know? I just don't get this, man. This everybody is beautiful nonsense has just got to stop. Because not everybody is beautiful. Okay. Man, I'm really on my soapbox tonight. Whew, I'm just fired up at this nonsense in these magazines. Okay, here's Giorgio Armani, and this is really beautiful. Okay, so what they've done here. Now, normally, I really dislike a lot of Photoshop, right? But here, it's really expertly used to create art. Okay, so this is not a grossly over-processed photo. This is over-processed intentionally to almost border on an illustration, right? So we're kind of departing a photograph and entering illustration type territory, okay? This is very heavily photoshopped, but for the purpose of turning it into a very artistic work, and it's really, really working. It's really beautifully done. I have to give Giorgio Armani a lot of credit, because, and I love this too. Look at these surfaces, right? These surfaces, they're, right? There's a lot of imperfections in the surface of this wall, and it almost takes on this parchment or vellum. It starts to look like vellum, and it's really beautiful. Wow, they did a great job on that. Okay, I was talking about this maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago. Zoe Kravitz and Miley Cyrus have each done this to themselves. They have all these little tattoos all over, and it's just god awful and dirty, right? That just looks, they look like heroin addicts, right? As soon as you see this, you think of the heroin addicts of the 60s and 70s, right? It's just so unclean in appearance. Okay, I have to give, this is Kylie Jenner, this of the Kardashian and Jenner family. So Kendall, I think Kendall is the youngest. She's a model. Kylie's a model, right? I mean, that whole family, you talk about nepotism. This is nepotism central. But as much as I really dislike that family, I've always called honest balls and strikes. And I have to admit, she's rocking this shoot. As much as I dislike her, she is really rocking that photo. So again, as an umpire, I gotta be honest, and she looks wonderful. It's a wonderful photo. Okay, we're back on Gas. Gas, as I've said a million times, they have the best in the business. And I want you to see this small aperture. It's so cool. So you can see this. Looks like a peninsula. This peninsula is sticking out here into the water, but it's in focus. So imagine how far away that is. So this is in focus, and that's in focus. So it looks like, the photographer's using f/16 or f/22, right, in this photo. And look at how well. Now this is the difference. Did you see that one woman? Where was that woman? And it's going to take me forever to find her. But give me a second here. I know I'm a little bit, right here. Now look at how little attention has been paid to her. And look at how much attention has been paid. Paul Marciano and Gas. Look how much attention has been paid to her makeup and hair. Now see, this is the glamour that was once the standard or the norm in these magazines. Look at here. Look at how svelte and how shapely. Right? Here, this is a very 1930s inspired look. You can very clearly see this is a 1930s influence. Beautifully executed. Look at the time they've spent on these models to get them photo ready. Then you have this trash, and I'm not talking about the woman being trash. I'm talking about the photo being trash. This is disgraceful. This is really, to me, I find this offensive that they would run some garbage like this in a fashion magazine. This is disgraceful. Then you come to Paul Marciano, and this is the summit. This is the summit of fashion photography. It doesn't get any better than this. So look at the difference between this garbage and this absolutely wonderful fashion photography. Really, really quite a stark difference. Okay, where are we at on time? 25 minutes. Okay, again, we're getting this. I'm sure this was done in post, not in the camera, right? The photographer, I'm sure, was backed out further than this, but they came in post, cut the top of the head off, right? That's a new trend I'm not getting. This started just a few months ago, this cranial avulsion. These cranial avulsions started a few months ago. The blue, we've talked about this, blue never works in a photo, and it's not working here. Okay, this is Julia Roberts, and I want you to see this because if you notice, a lot of these celebrities are getting plastic surgery, and sometimes they're going horribly wrong. Like if you look at Demi Moore, I feel so sorry for her. She went under the knife. I think she did, I'm pretty sure. And she was butchered. Oh my God, they did a terrible job on her mouth. She reminds me of Kim Novak. If you remember Kim Novak from, I think it was Vertigo. I know she was in a Jimmy Stewart movie, and I'm pretty sure it was Vertigo. But they messed up her mouth, right? And Demi Moore got all jacked up like that too. The same thing. Madonna underwent some surgery recently. She's completely ruined. But my point is, look at Julia Roberts. She's allowing herself to age naturally, and she looks wonderful, right? She's getting some wrinkles. But my point is, she's aging gracefully, right? She's just letting nature take its course, and she's not trying to turn herself. She's not trying to turn the clock back 30 years. She's accepting herself for who she is. And I wish more people in Hollywood and New York would do this. Just, hey, it is what it is. I am who I am, and I embrace it, you know? Okay, this is another one by Skechers. And this is, again, this one. If you, I don't know, you probably don't remember it, but they ran an advertisement. I showed it to you maybe 2-3 episodes ago or something, and it was very artistic like this. Now it was different, but what I'm saying is this is very highly stylized. So looks like they've shot a real person's mouth here, right? And there's multiple layers in Photoshop, multiple layers to number one, to make this rainbow, and to make this highly stylized advertisement here, but it looks wonderful. Good job. This is Gisele Bündchen taken in 2000, right? So she's really rocking it here, and all these 23 years later, she's still hitting the gym, and she's looking great. But this is a photograph from 2000. Okay, and I think I'm gonna end it here after this one. Now, we talked about before, do you remember the one with Inez and Vinood with Rianne Van Rompuy? And I said it was Civil Twilight. So here, now the thing, so the strobe is firing and hitting the model, of course, right? The strobe is illuminating these, whether they're really on location, whether this is really rock, or whether it's some type of paper mache. It really doesn't matter. But what I'm talking about, this light is from the strobe, the same light that's hitting her, right? But in the background, this is very late. So we were talking about Civil Twilight. When you start to see this light here, it's at the very end of Civil Twilight. Do you remember where Civil Twilight is? The sun is below the horizon from 0 to 6 degrees. And from there it turns into Nautical Twilight, where the sun is from 6 to 12 degrees below the horizon. And there's one more after that, which is Astronomical Twilight, where it's between 12 and 18 degrees. But my point is this portion here, this is kind of a telltale look of late Civil Twilight, just starting to enter Nautical Twilight. But the problem here is things are no longer visible here. Now the problem is, this is not an agreement, because even though there's very little residual light here, this light would be enough to barely illuminate, very little, but objects here in the background would still be visible. Okay, so there's disagreement here. So this looks like very late Civil Twilight, but this is very late Nautical Twilight, and the difference is about 30 minutes. So what I'm saying is this right here and this here, there's 30 minutes difference, right, in these two different things. So my speculation is, or my hunch is, the Photoshop technician went in here and darkened all this, took it to black, right? But now there's a mismatch. Again, late Civil Twilight, late Nautical Twilight. Okay, and let's make this the last one. I thought this was let me give the illustrator credit. This is Nina Chanel, and you have to wonder if she's really more nepotism related to the Coco Chanel, right? You know, the perfume and I don't know how many different things they're into, but anyways, the House of Chanel. I don't know if she's a relation, but I thought this was real cool. And I'm seeing two artists in this, right? So let's look at this right here. I'm seeing a little bit of Jean-Michel Basquiat, right? He did skulls, primarily skulls, but I've seen a couple of his things, and it looks kind of like this. So I'm seeing a little bit of Basquiat here, but the rest of this is a real heavy influence of Henri Matisse, right? There's a lot of Matisse in this other area here. So again, you got a little bit of Basquiat and some Matisse, and you have to wonder if Nina was kind of influenced, maybe if those are two big influences in her artistic pursuits, right? But anyways, it's beautiful. But again, I see the influences in this illustration. Okay, so let's see. We're at 30, so let's call it here. We still have some more to go. Let's make this a part 2. These remaining images, we'll turn that into a part 2. So I hope you enjoyed this. If so, I would kindly appreciate a thumbs up if you would be so gracious, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.